My name is Leila, as Esther mentioned. I am actually an immigrant from Iran, and I grew up in Austria, Vienna. And after completing my medical school, I moved to the UK. So I worked as a doctor for a few years before I had to quit medicine for health reasons. And I was a vegan at the time, but after a few years, I actually discovered a whole food plant-based diet. So I healed myself, on a whole food plant-based diet. And that was the reason why I went into nutrition. So I got a master's degree in nutrition, and I'm a nutritionist. That's my day job. So Plant-Based Health Justice, it's a non-profit organization that I founded 2 years ago. And it really came about because I recognized a gap. We have all these groups, organizations that focus on animal rights. Then we have those promoting a whole food plant-based diet. Then we have those who, just talk about climate change. And of course, we have the social justice activists. So all these different groups, what they are missing is that or what they are doing is that they only focus on one single issue. And as long as we do that, we are actually not going to be effective. We are actually not going to create lasting, long-lasting change. And that is what we need, really. So that's why I founded Plant-Based Health Justice. And at Plant-Based Health Justice, our mission is to create healthier, sustainable world through justice for all. By the way, I should have asked, is there anybody who's not vegan in this room? No? Okay. I thought I'd ask it.
I don't think they would put their hand up.
I had to ask, sorry. I was just very curious. Anyway, okay. So how many of you have a driving license? Oh, good. So you have actually taken the driving test, right? When I took my driving test, there was a lesson which I found very fascinating. And it was the, lesson about blind spots. So when you are driving, you look, into the rear view mirror, then you check the side mirrors. That gives you a general view of the, traffic, of the surrounding environment. But if you want to change lanes, if you want to overtake, even if, you want to open your door, you have to look over your shoulders. Because if you don't, you may actually miss a car, or you may miss a cyclist, a pedestrian in your blind spot. So blind spots are the areas around the car where, you can't see them if you actually don't make a conscious effort to look over your shoulders. And in the same way, in veganism, there are aspects that we can't recognize if we don't make a conscious effort. And if we do that, or let's say if we don't do that, we are going to miss things. And that could eventually end in a deadly accident. So what are the blind spots to watch out for? I wish there was a list. I wish there was a checklist I could give to you and say, that is what you should watch out for. But just like when you are driving, the roads change, the scenery changes. So you have to always check, what is happening around you. And the same, applies to our activism. There are different scenarios. Maybe you're having dinner with your family and friends, or maybe you're doing outreach on the streets, or maybe you're shopping and you just speak, to a random stranger, or you're at a conference like this one, or at work talking to your colleagues. So there isn't actually like a fixed list that I can give to you, but we can navigate these blind spots by understanding the root cause of animal cruelty and oppression. So I'm going to actually talk about the root causes of animal cruelty and how these root causes, which have led to exploitation of animals, are also the root causes of all the other global issues that we are facing, climate change, human rights violations, health issues. All of that actually is rooted in the same causes. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because we usually have a lot of non-vegans who are actually very invested, talking about climate change and health issues and human rights violations. So if we realize that these injustices are connected, if we really want to end animal cruelty, we need actually to collaborate with other activists, those who address climate change, racism, homophobia, and what else, sexism, all these isms and discriminations. That is the only way we can be effective and create lasting systemic change. And, that is what we need if we want to end animal cruelty. Now, some in the vegan movement, refer to this concept as intersectional veganism. I don't like that term because it suggests that we have a choice, that you can choose to be an intersectional vegan. You don't, because we are all intersectional beings. Intersectionality actually refers to the fact that all of us, we have a mix of different identities, and these identities or these labels, they come together and they overlap. They shape who we are. They shape how we see the world, how we interact, how we experience life. And they also determine how other people see us, how other people judge us, how other people actually treat us. And that mix of identities is also how you move in the world, even how you move in this, conference, for example. Now, there are some people who are not aware of it. There are some people who don't like the idea of intersectionality. But you know what? They have the luxury of ignoring it because their identities or the mix of their identities, or let's say the majority of their identities actually match the dominant culture. So if you are like, for example, that's just an example, cisgender, heterosexual, male, white, that matches actually what the mainstream society considers as norm. But if you're brown, black, queer, homosexual, it's actually at odds with what the society considers the norm. So you can see there are lots of circles, and I'm sure there's actually something missing on this, slide. So, there are actually large numbers of identities we can have, and depending on where you are, one of these identities or some of these identities can actually stand out while others go into the background. Like the way I introduced myself, I mentioned I'm an Iranian and I grew up in Austria. I don't usually mention that in my talks, but here, because the topic is intersectionality and oppression, I mentioned it. I usually talk about nutrition. I don't talk about that. I mentioned that actually I'm an athlete. I do martial arts because I'm talking about the sports nutrition. I didn't mention that to you here. So you see, we ourselves, we actually choose which identity we want to focus on. And here, we are all vegan, so that is the norm. On my way to Manchester, I was probably the only vegan in the train. So you see, it is something fluid. It's not a fixed kind of identity that we carry wherever we go. And it's also how we present ourselves to other people. We keep changing it ourselves because, our agenda is different. Obviously, when we are doing vegan activism, outreach, being vegan stands out. That is, one of the identities we carry with us. Now, when you are doing activism, whether it is outreach on the streets or whether it is online, you are interacting with people. So if you are aware that each of us actually experiences life differently, then you can be aware of your own biases, of your own privilege, and then understanding these dynamics will actually help you. It helps you to improve your interactions, your communication skills, and it helps you to reach more people. It helps you to get more people go vegan, and that is what we want. That is our ultimate goal. That is why we are here, in this conference. Now, let's start by talking about the root causes of animal cruelty. There are many, and I'm going to really keep it simple because that's not really the focus. I'm just trying to make a point. So, we exploit animals for food, clothing, entertainment, cheap labor, animal testing, and there's a lot more. But let's start with cheap labor. You don't need to pay them. and no compensation, no vacation is needed, nothing. And if you mistreat them, nobody bats an eye. If you send them to space, you don't need to worry about, returning them back, to Earth. Again, animals are cheap and expendable. Animal testing, it is cost-effective and ethically less challenging. Now, again, my focus is on, let's say the last century. Nowadays, fur, leather, silk, these are actually luxury items. We don't need them. So those people who choose to use them, to wear them, they're actually doing it as a symbol of wealth, power, authority. That is what they want to display by, having these items. I know you just had actually a talk about zoos, whoever was here before. So zoos and circuses, again, animals have always been captured and displayed for entertainment. And in a way, it is again about, making money, making profit. And also, it's some people actually keep exotic animals as pets, so to show their power, their authority, their wealth. So again, animals are being used for, money and to make money and power. Lastly, you are all quite familiar with animal agriculture, and the focus is on the last century when the traditional farming practices were replaced by factory farming. So there was a rise in demand for meat, and that coincided with advances in technology, which meant that farmers could actually, abuse animals, produce large amounts of meat, animal products at lower cost. So they did that by confining animals in small cages, in small spaces, dirty. So again, it was about making profit. So they chose actually profit over animal lives. So yeah, my point is that, what is the underlying reason for animal cruelty? It is because humans want wealth, profit, status, power, authority. That is the root cause, really. And the way the humans have treated animals for centuries, it reflects a hierarchical mindset, where humans place themselves above everybody else. And that allows them to abuse other people, other beings, for their own gains, whether it is financial, power, or status. And in a way, when you put yourself first, when you feel that you are superior to everybody else, your needs come first. And then you don't see anything wrong with, abusing and exploiting others. In fact, you may feel entitled to do so. So at its root, animal cruelty, the same reasons that have led to exploitation of animals are the same reasons that lead to exploitation of humans, exploitation of nature. So at its roots, actually, animal cruelty, exploitation of humans, nature, what we have is power, privilege, and perceived superiority. So we get this, that a certain group of people, they put themselves at the top of the pyramid, and everybody else is inferior. And the classification of who is inferior is really arbitrary. It is based on gender, race, ethnicity, but even, we have stray animals versus purebred, or dogs versus pigs. So it's really arbitrary, but this kind of hierarchical mindset is based on power imbalances. So we always have those who are superior and who have privilege, and they can decide whom to exploit for their own gains in order to actually keep their economic, social, and political status. So when you go vegan, what you do is you're not harming animals. But if you haven't changed your hierarchical mindset, that is what we get. If you don't change your hierarchical mindset, your behaviors, your actions, your words, you're actually perpetuating the same social norms, the same cultural traditions that have led to the exploitation of animals in the first place. You are actually, if you are still having this hierarchical mindset, this mentality, you are still upholding the status quo. So nothing has changed. So as long as you continue abusing, and exploiting other humans, you still have that mindset. Because what is happening is you're still putting yourself at the top of the pyramid. Now, and when you're putting yourself at the top of the pyramid, it means you are superior to others. You are superior to the same animals, to the very animals you're actually trying to save. Now, you may say, I don't care. Veganism is about, just not harming animals. And I don't want to exploit animals, and I'm not doing that. And I'm actually privileged. I like my privileges, and I like to enjoying my privileges. So why should I care? Why should I change anything? Now, there are actually a lot of reasons why you should change, but I will only focus on 3 reasons. And if we ignore those, our activism, we are actually going to reduce the impact of our activism. Firstly, if you put your needs first, you do run the risk of going back to exploiting animals. Now, I know everybody in the room is going to say, no, I would never do that, but I'm a nutritionist. I have met ex-vegans. And I'm not talking about vegans who were eating a vegan diet for health reasons. I'm talking about vegan activists. People who were organizing marches, who were, doing things about, against animal testing. And the minute a healthcare professional told them that they need animal products for their survival, they went back to eating animal products. And one of them actually even goes fishing now. So she goes fishing, she exploits animals for entertainment, and she used to actually be very active against animal testing. And I know another vegan, she's still vegan, but she actually is not against animal testing because one of her family members has cancer. And if there's this tiny chance that these researchers may find a cure, then she's okay with it. Now, you may say that, you would never do that, but believe me, those activists, they said the same thing. So as long as you put your needs first, your dreams, your ambitions, your desires, you may actually go back to harming animals. So that is the first reason. The second reason is we want a vegan world. And that is only possible if we actually reach other demographics. And we can only do that by expanding our circle of compassion to everybody. Last but not least, if you put your needs first, your dreams, your ambitions, you end up actually exploiting other vegans. And this is a very common problem in activist groups. We think we are the good guys. That is a comment which a lady made. She's in the charities sector. Yes, it is a non-charity. And she was talking about homophobia, racism, and sexual harassment in the volunteer charity sector. A lot of marginalized people, they are exploited in charities. They keep quiet because they are afraid of repercussions. And you may say these are non-vegan charities, but it's not. It happens in the vegan community as well. And this study in 2018, it was in the US, they investigated the causes of burnout in animal rights activists. And women and people of color, so black people, they said that one of the main reasons for their burnout was discrimination and racism. And the same study concluded that vegan movement, the vegan community centers cisgender, heterosexual, white men. So we are actually, the movement is losing some of its passionate activists because they are fed up of being exploited. They are fed up of being discriminated against and being, passed over for promotions. So if we want a vegan world, that is what we need to do. There is no hierarchy. We are all the same, and everybody, no matter whether they are a human animal or non-human animal, they are treated with respect and fairness and compassion. So that is what we are aiming to achieve. We all say a rat is a pig, a dog is a boy. When we say a boy, we are talking about all human beings, not just those from the global, from the global north. The the idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong in the world. And again, when we say all lives, that doesn't just mean animal lives. It includes humans as well. So if we want really total animal liberation, if that is our end goal, we need actually to end oppression against humans and animals. So how do we do that? How do we actually adopt an anti-oppressive approach? First of all, recognize and acknowledge that oppression exists. The systems and structures in our society actually are oppressive by default. So all of us, all of you, including myself, we can act in oppressive acts. We can actually engage in oppressive actions. And that is really important to recognize. And no matter what your race is, your skin color, your ethnicity, even if you have been oppressed yourself, even if you belong to a marginalized group, that doesn't make you immune to being oppressive. So we need to recognize that and acknowledge it and admit it, really. Self-reflection, be critical with yourself. Question your actions. Why do you do what you do? Why do you say what you say? And educate yourself. I'm going to actually show you a slide with 2 book recommendations. And listen when marginalized groups share their experiences and perspectives. Don't dismiss it. And speak up. Do the right thing even if you're standing alone. And that goes again for all oppressions, not just when it comes to animal cruelty. So speak up even if it feels uncomfortable. And take responsibility. The larger your privilege, the more responsibility you carry. It is, it's sometimes much easier for people with privilege to speak up against oppression because they don't have as much to lose as, certain groups. And if you are working or volunteering for an organization, ask them to actually offer anti-oppressive training. It is available, and I know a lot of social justice groups, they have it. It doesn't mean that you become anti-oppressive, but it is a good starting point. So these are 2 books that I would recommend. One of them can be a bit academic, but it is really good, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. The Politics of Trauma, although it has the name of trauma, but also it has a lot of stories of social justice activists and how they were oppressed, in their movement and how they got out of it. Basically, it is about how to be diverse and inclusive without being performative. I finish with this quote, which is attributed to Gandhi: be the change that you wish to see in the world. If we want a world free from oppression, we ourselves, each of us, has to be, anti-oppressive. We should be free from oppression. Thank you.